Tending the garden. It's such a rich metaphor. I've personally never planted anything that I haven't subsequently neglected until it died. But my sister is a master gardener. And so I've learned a little through hydroponic osmosis. I really do see the appeal of this metaphor, especially in times like these when living hurts, when we're full of worry, when some days it feels like an act of courage to even get out of bed, when we feel an aching powerlessness as we stand witness to the evisceration of the world as we knew it. Yes, let us tend to our own gardens, because planting seeds matters, telling stories matters, making art matters. So tend your own garden. Make art. Go to the studio without feeling guilty. And yet my colleagues' words did not and do not sit easily on my heart. Not when a Turkish doctoral student at Tufts, a Fulbright scholar on her way to iftar, is abducted by masked men on the street and slated for deportation from this country. And it's not even the biggest news story of the week, by far. And if you're wondering how I or we as Jews react to the fact that this abduction was done ostensibly in the name of protecting Jews, I just refer you back to my sermon from a couple of weeks ago. I am not your pawn. I find no comfort in the prescription to tend your own garden when three of the most respected scholars of philosophy, intellectual history, and fascism at Yale determined this week that they could not safely remain in this country and announced that they were going to leave for the University of Toronto. I love Yale, one of them said, but we're going to go defend democracy somewhere else. I find no comfort in this prescription amidst executive orders warning that funding to the nation's great museums will be defunded, will be gutted due to their anti-American ideology, namely their teaching of African American history and women's history. I fear that in light of this reality, a call to tend our own gardens could be misread as an excuse to liberate ourselves from the overwhelm of the troubles of the world by turning inward. I fear that it could be misunderstood as permission to recede from the world precisely when it is most urgent that we fight for it. This I know. We do not have the luxury today of passivity, and we must reject escapism, which is the spiritual equivalent of surrender. Now, I do not believe that the Buddhist teachers intended for us to turn away from the world, and that is certainly not what the moment demands of us. Bezalel must have been practicing his art, even in the darkness. He must have tended his own garden, even when there was no reason to believe that anything would ever grow, let alone flourish in these conditions. Years ago, Leslie Jameson called the creation of art, even in the most horrific conditions, the stirring possibilities of generative constraint. Because making art and tending gardens and telling stories, especially from within those narrow constraints, all of these can be an expression of our vitality. These can be acts of defiance. This is the inner work that trains the heart toward expansive possibility, even while we are still in the darkness, and certainly once the darkness lifts. What we need today is not a call to the garden as a distraction from the world, but as an invitation to work the muscles of planting for a better future. We need art not to escape, but to enrich the soul, to awaken the creative possibilities that live inside every single one of us. And so I am calling us to distinguish between self-care, the need to be tender to ourselves in order to find the strength to survive this darkness, and passivity, a blissful retreat from the struggle and from the suffering all around us.